Hello everybody, my name is Drew Pizzullo and I'm here today to give you a movie review on Top Gun Maverick. Here's my thoughts on the sequel to the legendary Top Gun that came out in 1986. We've been waiting 36 years for this sequel, and the sequel really didn't disappoint, but I wanted to go through some. I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen it yet, so I'm not going to go into um, a lot of details, but I want to go through some of the thoughts I had after I did see the sequel and give it the overall score and review for people who haven't seen it. First off, I do recommend if you go see the sequel, which I'm sure it's going to be breaking box office records. It already grossed $19 million in its preview day on its opening Thursday preview, and that was just a sneak preview for audiences on a limited release. It really was released on Friday, May 27th, which is when I saw it, and the movie theater was packed. And if you go see it, I do recommend you go see it in Dolby digital sound. You do pay more for that. I think our tickets were like $22 each. But you do get the reclining seats and you do get the 3D virtual effect of the movie, as the sound is totally different. You have a different level of sound in terms of the vibration, and they add some other special effects so it makes you really feel like you're there when the jets are taking off and stuff like that. So it really does give it a more in-person experience than just a regular movie when you go see it. So we get to the actual movie itself. Let me just first start off with the soundtrack. I always like to start off with music because I am a singer-songwriter, and I do like to analyze that aspect of the movie first. In the original Top Gun, you have a classic soundtrack. You're featuring the Righteous Brothers, you're featuring Kenny Loggins, you're featuring Berlin, you're featuring Great Balls of Fire, you're featuring a lot of different songs that everybody knows and loves, and they intertwine that beautifully throughout the original movie. In Top Gun Maverick, they brought back some of the soundtrack of the original Top Gun, so you do have Danger Zone from Kenny Loggins. We'll start off there, which is great because anytime the sequel brings back anything from the original, you get nostalgic, and it kind of makes you smile, and that part of it was really cool. But in terms of the soundtracks overall, I'm old school in that aspect. I like the original soundtrack much better. Stuff like the volleyball scene with playing with the boys, even stuff. I think they intertwined it better in the original than they did in the sequel. The sequel, they featured a Lady Gaga song, which is supposed to be the equivalent of the Berlin song, and that was at the end of the movie. Kind of got lost, and it wasn't nearly as good as Berlin of Take My Breath Away. So you're not going to have that pop that you did on the original soundtrack. Plus, the fact that there's no Righteous Brothers at all, they cut that out, kind of leaves something to the imagination. That was just one of the iconic songs of all time, and you just don't get that in this movie from this soundtrack. It's good. They did bring back Great Balls of Fire and a flash sequence of going back from the original to the sequel, and that brings you back in time a little bit, but they just don't give you enough to hang on in terms of the soundtrack, because the original was so iconic. I think that's what kind of overshadows this movie a little bit. When you have such an original, iconic movie that is preserved by the Library of Congress, I mean, it's so hard to detach yourself from that or make it better than the original, and you really can't. So very rarely have I seen a sequel where I said the sequel is better than the original. That was such an iconic movie. So that's where you get in the soundtrack aspect. In terms of characters, now that was a little bit interesting. I found myself, number one, oddly enough, missing the generals of the original movie more. Yes, the generals in this movie were okay. You know them. They're pretty famous from other movies, but they're not as lovable as the original generals. The original generals, they made more of a character, and it made you more of a connection, especially with the lead general. And you just found yourself wishing that they could take one of the original generals from 36 years ago, if they were still alive today, and incorporate them into this movie. The only one that they made into an admiral was Val Kilmer, which was Iceman's character, which you liked. You just, unfortunately, you didn't see enough of him because of his situation. I mean, it was really interesting how art imitates life. On what's tragically happened to Val Kilmer, they kind of incorporated into this movie, and he only really had a short part in it, and you wanted to see more because, again, it's nostalgic. It brought back the original movie, and you could see how close Iceman and Maverick were in this movie. You just wanted to see more of that, and you wish he could have spoke. It's really clever what they did with, I know with him speaking, he's not even able to speak anymore due to his condition with his vocal cords, and they were able to digitally make that happen for a short period of time, which was really cool to see because you knew that going into the movie. That was well announced in public. So that was an interesting aspect. I mean, the character development overall, the love story of Top Gun compared to Top Gun Maverick was better in Top Gun, even though, you know, because you got to develop it more in terms of this one where it was a back burner. You really didn't understand the history of how these people, these two met. They gave you a little bit, but that was the interesting part of it. Like, some of this character development really wasn't told. You had to try to figure it out a lot. You had the interesting aspect of Goose, which was brought up a lot from the original to Top Gun Maverick, which was done very well. They did a very nice job of incorporating the old movie into the new movie and doing flashbacks and, you know, really giving you a sense of how much, you know, Goose still meant to Maverick after all these years. And I did appreciate that. I did like that. Anytime you go back to the original, it brings the people back and they, again, get nostalgic. So, and then the development of his son, that left something to be desired. Especially, like I said, I don't want to give too much away. When the son doesn't realize why he is where he is, and why Maverick did what he did to delay him, they only tell you, Maverick tells everybody else but him in the movie, which was kind of strange, and they give you the reason that he didn't want him hating his mother, as well as what happened with his father. And okay, I thought it was going to be wrapped up at the end of the movie where they would have a heart-to-heart, and even though, you know, you knew in this movie some of it was predictable where everything would end up okay, it did leave some loose ends that needed to be tied up. So between those two characters, I felt there was some loose ends that should have been tied up. So you have that aspect along with it as well. In terms of movie production-wise, it was great. The action sequences were great with the way the technology has progressed in the last 36 years. And, you know, you found yourself riveted. I will give them a lot of props, and it wasn't predictable. It had a lot of twists and turns in it, which was pretty cool because the last thing you want to go to a sequel and just see a predictable movie. And, you know, whereas they followed the timeline of the original movie with some aspects of it, with others, you were thrown all over the place. So they did a nice job of, throwing twists and turns, and you didn't know what was coming next. And that was really cool to see the character development, especially of Maverick and Goose's son, who is named Rooster in this movie, to form that bond that you knew was eventually going to happen by the end of the movie. Just how it got there, you weren't so sure. So overall, I thought the movie was a great sequel. It was, I probably hadn't been this excited for a movie, especially between 36 years and you had 2 years of COVID in that timeline. I think it's going to do extremely well in the box office, as it should. There wasn't anything political about it. They didn't even mention the other country that was the adversary in this movie, just like they didn't mention it in the original. They kept everything out of, so there really isn't anything for people to get angry about, no matter what side of the political aisle you're on. It was just a good movie that brought back fun times. It was nice to see his iconic jacket again, the motorcycle, even the F-14, the F-18s in the original movie. They tried to bring back whatever they could. I wish they could have brought back more characters from the original. I don't know if that was even possible. I know the whole thing with Kelly McGillis, and they didn't want to bring her back for certain reasons. But the overall episode, if I had to rate this from 1 to 10, Top Gun, I would rate like a 9.5. I mean, it's as close to perfect as you're going to get from an iconic movie. This one, the sequel, I would rate about in between an 8.5 and a 9. I thought it was, extremely good. I thought the visual special effects were very good. The character development overall was pretty good with the new characters that they introduced to the movie. Again, not the level that you got in the original, but again, when you have a bar that's this high, it's really hard to jump over it. So yes, I would rate this sequel again below the original, but a very good sequel. We had a very good time. And you actually heard clapping after the movie, which in today's day and age is pretty rare. But I'm glad that I was able to see it with a group of friends, and I was able to review it for you today. So go see it. I hope it does break box office records. And enjoy Top Gun Maverick. Because in the end, I guess we all have the need for speed. Have a great day and enjoy the movie.